Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the CCA CRA. This is the latest release from the KZ group, and I'm actually going to be reviewing it at the same time with the ZEX Pro, which is the upgraded clinical tuned ZX. A quick word on with regards to the tuning of this one. I have no idea whether or not it's been tuned by Clinical or not, or if it has had a hand of Clinical on it. Some rumors say that it was tuned all in-house, so but anyway, that's irrelevant. What is relevant is that I will be then co-reviewing it, or with the ZX with the ZX Pro, which is over here. Okay, I've got a black one, and I've got the goldish pink one, and I'll be comparing it with the original ZX, which I've got over there. Also got two versions, and I'll be comparing it with a few other IEMs, which actually were quite enlightening and enriching in the experience of what the CRA is about. As for the CRA, simple, I mean really simple affair, plastic shell, nothing spectacular. You look at the driver and it looks like the driver that comes in the EDX Pro, so maybe perhaps even in the ZX, I'm not sure. What I do know is that, and quoting from KZ themselves, it's a 10mm high polymer diaphragm. It's dual magnet, which is again what is being used as well in the ZX. Thus, my comment of, is it perhaps the same driver as on the ZX and ZX Pro? The main attraction of this new driver is that it's got an ultra thin diaphragm, 3.8 micros, as opposed to the usual 5.6, which is a more common. And what this diaphragm thickness, or ultra thin diaphragm thickness, has given us is, with the fact that sort of got dual magnets, of course, is a very quick responding diaphragm, a very quick responding driver, which has very quick, clean, clear bass, very impactful, very you have to actually hear it and compare it with similar drivers of the price range and more expensive to then get a perception of what I'm talking about. And coupled to that, because the diaphragm is ultra thin and ultra light, this has also enabled the frequency response above 8K to be quite more pronounced than usual. And it's quite noticeable. I mean, you hear it very well when you listen to the CRA. Besides that, it's basically, actually, let me just quick show you here the diagram. That's the diagram of the CRA. As you can see, there's a definite sub-bass focus. So below 100 Hz, there's a definite rise. There's a focus there. Then the whole mid bass blends nicely into the mids, and then the mids relatively transition relatively good. It's relatively flat. There's no real bleed, and then the upper mids, there's a gradual nice rise with just enough energy. There's a peak then there at around about 5K, which it would have been nice if it didn't really exist, but then again, I didn't really find it to be offensive in any way. Then there's the usual 8K coupler peak, and then there's that energy then past 10K, which is what this driver is basically brought to the table, is that single DD with all that extra energy above there, which is not common. I mean, if just for the sake of comparison, I just pop in the blue line is the diagram, the graph for the ZX Pro. less energy across, although it follows the curve very much similar up to about 600-700 hertz. It's very similar. Then you see that other one's got more pronounced output, but very similar. Similar again, yeah, just a little bit less energy on that 4 or 5K area, which I think probably is as well the electret working, and that transition in terms of the crossover, letting that driver do the work has been able to also tune it so that there's not excessive energy around there. But where you see the difference between the Pro and the CRA is the Pro, the ZEX Pro then has a BA to help out in the higher frequencies, and you only really get it helping out at around 15-16K, because between 10 and that the CRA is way more energetic, way more present. Anyway, let me just get back here to the driver itself, to the earphones themselves. What are the earphones like? Well, they fit nicely. They had absolutely no issues with fit. As already is usually the case, and those that follow me know, I like whenever possible to buy multiple sets, which I did. I've got multiple sets of the ZEX Pro here, multiple sets of the ZEX, multiple sets of the CRA. I also bought multiple sets of the of the NRA, multiple sets of the CRA as well. And basically what I've got here is the best, the ones that graph the best, the ones that graphed more balance between channels and everything out of all these models. And the reason why I do it is because quality control, is a very real issue. Although, truth be told, and that's the reality, KZ manages to keep things in tabs, and the reality is I didn't really see much differences. Perhaps out of all the drivers, the ones where I did see more differences between the various pairs that I bought were the CRA. The NRA. I bought actually 3 pairs of NRAs, and it was the driver it was the model that had the most imbalances in terms of the bass output between left and right channel. Out of the 3 pairs, just this one was the one that was able to graph perfectly and be really balanced out. With regards to the ZEX Pros, I had no issues. They all kind of were very similar. The same thing happened with the ZEX, the standard ZEX, be it this goldish one or goldish pink, or be it the black one. They both graphed very similar. And as well, the CRA also graphed quite similar, so no real issues there. Anyway, on to what we were talking about. Fit is fine. I mean, it's really it's never really been an issue with KZs, at least not for me. It fits fine. Isolation is okay, and then we have that curve there. Let me just actually take away the ZEX Pro there for a second, and then we have that curve, which let me put it up there again. So okay, then we have that graph, which some might say, oh, okay, it's V-shaped, and yes, okay, it's V-shaped. Definitely, there's an emphasis on the lower frequencies, but the higher frequencies, honestly, I don't really consider them V. You could, I mean, the couple of resonant frequency there, let's get that out of the equation. It's and if you actually balance out the rest, it's quite flattish actually. It's not. There's no massive peaks, ups and downs and stuff there. That really, it's relatively flat between 1 and 4, and then above 10 as well. It stays more or less okay. So I would say that this is a V-ish signature, definitely, but with not that prominent highs. Well, at least not in my opinion, as you do see more traditional V-shaped IEMs. Again, this is just my opinion. Back onto the earphones themselves. Onto sound. So what do they sound like? Well, the moment I put them on, and the first thing that really jumped to me straight away was how quick the driver was. It is very quick. And jumping back and forth between it and the ZEX Pro, let me just put the graph up. Okay, and jumping back and forth between the two, you do notice that the ZEX Pro is more laid back, definitely. It doesn't have that bass so emphasized. And you do notice that there isn't that extra energy up top as the CRA has. So you could say it's Kyln's tuning. It's Kyln's tuning of what his preference is, and so it's very neutral, very chilled out, and it's very smooth sounding. The CRA is that with a little bit more guts in the bass, with a little bit more speed in the bass. There are times where I actually feel that the bass is similar, just slightly more subdued on the ZEX Pro, which again makes me question if it isn't the same drive and it's just been down to the different tuning, which then gives us this bass which is less energetic. The reality is that the CRA, although it might not be, let's say, an audiophile's dream in terms of being perfectly balanced and neutral and so on and so forth, the signature that it brings to the table is very engaging. It's very pleasant to listen to, and in with my musical choice at least, it makes things very nice, very engaging to listen to. Yes, that bass that it has sometimes can make things sound just a little extra overemphasized, let's put it that way, but it's never overemphasized in a bad way, in a way that you say, oh no, I don't like it, it sounds just wrong or anything of the sort. No. Actually, let me just put here the graph of the standard ZEX so we can have a look at the three. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can zoom in this a little bit. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, both the CRA, okay, and the ZEX Pro have that kind of sub-bass focus, while the ZEX definitely is more mid-bass focused, and it bleeds a little bit into the mids. However, it doesn't do it in a way which is offensive. Again, in my opinion, it actually makes the ZEX quite an engaging listen, and it's, although it's full of ups and downs, as you can see, it is actually quite pleasant when you listen to it. You do notice obviously differences when you listen to the three and you swap between the three of them, and the biggest difference for me is obviously that extra mid-bass energy. But then in terms of vocals and instruments, it is a question of taste. That extra energy that it has here at between the 1 and 2.5K can be sometimes interesting for male vocals, which can sometimes maybe sound a little bit thin, maybe. But it's not a bad thing. It is quite nice actually. I liked and I like the ZEX as I like the NRA. The difference between the two is that the ZEX, as compared to the NRA, which was the first one to use the selector and come out, is that there's a little bit more bass energy, and I'll just quickly show you what I mean. So NRA, and I'll just leave the NRA with the ZEX. With the ZEX. Okay, there we go. As you can see, the NRA, which is the green line, just got a little bit less base energy, but otherwise it follows very much the curve of the ZEX. Apparently the difference is that one has a triple magnet driver, the NRA, while the ZEX has a dual magnet, which apparently is again the same driver used on the ZEX Pro. The difference with the ZEX Pro and the ZEX being that they added a 30095 BA driver to extend the high frequency. So let me just take that out there, put on the ZEX Pro. ZEX Pro, well, so much has been said about it that I'm not gonna talk overly about it, but I will mention that yes, it is a different shell to the standard ZEX. It's got a shell more reminiscent of the DQ6, let's put it that way. Quality is beautiful. I mean, I've got the two versions, like I said, the black version, and I've got the pinkish one as well, pinkish gold. I mean, it's very nice. It's actually well, this is basically the continuation of what KZ has been giving us over the last, let's say, year with when they initially released the EDX. That was the start of I would say a new era for them, and they've been, you know, over the past year or so during 2021 been releasing every time new and more engaging drivers. The DQ6 was not drivers, sorry, earphones. The DQ6 was one of them. Very interesting implementation of a triple dynamic driver. Something that usually is found only on more expensive models. Then the ZAS with and the CA16 Pro with their implementation of all the BAs not being scattered all over the place, and some of them in the nozzle and everything. So they kind of followed a more mature approach to that, and the sound was obviously very reminiscent, or was a result of that. If anything, the ZAs just needed a little more energy up top to really be perfect, but otherwise it was a very energetic, full of bass. I mean, bass monster, really, very nice. Then the EDX Pro, which was the follow-up to the original EDX, again came in and improved on what was started out with the EDX, and it's kind of a very similar tune overall to the ZAS, to the flagship, and very engaging earphone for $10-12, and with a little mod, which can be either the usage of a Tanschem filter on the nozzle, or actually putting foam on the nozzle. So you remove the standard nozzle vent cover and you put some foam, some medium density foam. It tames down the peaks that it has higher up in the frequency range, and it makes it absolutely amazing to listen to. I mean, it is a pleasure to listen to that IEM. And the ZEX Pro was then the natural upgrade to what was started with the NRA. So the NRA was the first to come out with this 6.8 millimeter electret driver. Then the ZEX came out with the same driver implementation, but a slightly different DD. And then the ZEX Pro was the natural upgrade to it. So yeah, basically the ZEX Pro is the upgraded ZEX. It's been tuned by Clinical. It's got a very neutral tuning, very correct. No real emphasis on anything. It's just very smooth, very laid back. It doesn't have that mid-bass bump that the original ZEX or NRA had, and that has made some people maybe think that it's not as engaging. And I mean, look, it's just a more refined sound. It's as Clinical says, it's a way to obtain a more upscale tuning, something that you would find on more expensive IEMs. He even alluded to the analogy of it being kind of a blessing to tune in an IEM of under $50, and in that aspect he's done it brilliantly. It's been very well done, and like I say, it's a really nice, smooth listen. I mean, there's really nothing that I can falter as compared to the CRA. Personally, I like more the CRA. I'll be very honest. I just feel that extra energy that it has in the bass. Just 1 second, I'll actually show you. Okay. Okay. Personally, like I was saying, I just feel that this little boost that it has here, although it might not be ideally the perfect neutrality that you would like, or that some would like, let's put it that way, I feel that it has given a little extra life, which is very, very satisfying. And it is very nicely counterbalanced by that energy there at around 5, and that all that energy above 10k, and it just makes for an overall presentation which is, in my opinion, as equally balanced as the one on the ZEX Pro, with just the right amount of extra spice, let's put it that way. And it is, for me at least, and not wanting to jump the gun here, I think it is a better IEM than the ZEX Pro. That's my personal opinion. And that satisfaction that I was getting out of the NRA led me to say, well, how does it compare to other stuff? Just on a quick note before I do that, and just to touch up here a little bit here on the technicalities of the ZX, the ZX Pro, and the CRA. Definitely the one that has the best detailed retrieval for me, without a shadow of a doubt, is the oops, this got really tangled up here now. How the hell did I do this? Definitely the one that has the best detailed retrieval is the CRA, without a shadow of a doubt. That extra energy that it has up top, it pays off, and it has the most, it is just, in terms of detailed retrieval, it's a very nice IEM. In terms of soundstage, be it the ZX Pro, the CRA, or be it the original ZX, the CRA will probably win as well, but not by much. I would say that first CRA, then ZX Pro, then the ZX Imaging. I would say these two are basically the same. And then in terms of tonality and timbre, which is more correct sounding, let's put it that way, I would probably give it to the ZX Pro, simply because it's got just that little bit more toned down approach. But again, not by much, and always keep in mind the following: there's 3 drivers doing work here, there's 1 driver there. So this, overall, at least for me, is a little gem of an IEM. It's an absolute beast. I really hope that that KZ will do something with this driver in a more upgraded implementation, because it's really nice. As I was saying just a few seconds ago, or just a few minutes ago, this satisfaction that I got from the CRA made me then want to compare it to some other more expensive IEMs. Well, and as I was saying, I was so surprised with the overall presentation that the CRA was capable of giving, that I decided that I would start comparing it with some other IEMs. And not naturally or by default or whatever you want to call it, but these are the IEMs that I usually listen to mostly, so it was obvious that I just was like, let me just compare them, let me just see. So I took out my Oxygen, I took out my HANA 2021, took out my Kato, took out my Autumn, took out a couple of my better IEMs, let's put it that way. And initially I was like, oh my god, this thing plays really well, this thing really, obviously with then more careful listening and more, more, let's say, down to earth, and letting that initial enthusiasm, calm down, you start then obviously hearing differences. But just the simple fact that you put on the CRA and you take it off and you put on an Oxygen, or you put on a HANA 2021, or you put on, a Kato, or you put on a more, let's say, refined IEM, and initially, you kind of caught off guard and you say, oh my god, but what is this? That is, that's enough proof to show that it is genuinely a nice IEM. So I decided to take down a few notches and bring it down to more comparable competition. So CRA, ZEX Pro, HE01, HBB Mele, 10T3 Plus, an IEM which kind of gets forgotten a lot of times, and not because it's just because I've got so many, which is the Wizard HE01, Moondrop ARIA, and the T-Force Yuan. So I took these out and I started comparing. And what I can say straight away is that the CRA puts up one hell of a fight. Not only does it put up one hell of a fight, it actually supersedes some of these IEMs in particular parts of its performance. And the thing that you must keep in mind here is, I'm not gonna say, oh no, it's an ARIA killer, oh no, it's a Yuan killer, and I'm not gonna say that. What I am gonna say is that this thing costs $15, 15 buckaroos, and if KZ is able to take a $15 earphone and make it sound this impressive, obviously corners have been cut. This a basic shell. You look at the Mele, you look, the ARIA, you look at the Yuan, you look at the Wizard. They all have, even the T3, they all have nice premium shells. So money has been spent in the build quality. So this is not its strong point, the build quality. It is flimsy, let's put it that way, when compared to these other ones. But if they are able to take an earphone and make it sound this impressive, then this is a watch out. This is a wake-up call for the rest of the other manufacturers, that they better get their act together and start making genuinely good stuff. I mean, this is a similar situation that kind of happened with Blonde. The 03, 3 years ago, basically, when it came out, it, brought to the table a package at around, well, $25, $30 was initially the cost. That was putting to shame many more expensive IEMs. That was, kind of, oh my god, what is this? And like the Blonde, we've had a few others. The Richo SG01 just this year, again, a spectacular IEM that just plays unbelievably well for its price. The Tanya, the Tanstrom Tanya, another amazing IEM that for $22 or something, you put it on and you say, wow, this thing is impressive, and it is. And now it's been KZ's turn. Compared to what I've got here, what can I say? Well, let me just start by comparing it with the ZEX Pro. We've talked about it, so I'm not going to talk about more. Comparing it to the Mele, these two are definitely the ones out of all of these that have the most sub-bass emphasis, and they kind of follow each other until about 1.5K. Then there's a little bit more energy on the Mele. Actually, I can show you that, so it makes it easier. So as you can see, they kind of very similar bass output, not much of a big difference, maybe just a little few extra dBs on the CRA. Then they very much follow each other until about 1.5. Then there's a little bit extra energy here, 2 to 3K on the Mele side, which is then counteracted by a little bit extra energy on the 4 to 5.5, 6K side. And then the biggest difference is obviously post 8K, where the Mele just kind of is very laid back. Again, this is what HBB wanted in terms of his tuning, because of his preferences and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to say it's bad, it's wrong. No, it might suit you, it might not suit you. If you have a library like his, maybe this will be perfect. If you don't have, then you'll feel the lack of that sparkle. In my particular case, yes, the CRA is better than the Mele, period. It has that extra energy up top there, which just makes it a little bit more appealing. What's the downside? Sometimes the CRA can be perceived as slightly sibilant in some female voices, which the Mele really never is. Otherwise, in terms of technicalities, it's a give and take match. One will be better in detail retrieval, the CRA. The other might have a more correct tonality in certain aspects, the Mele. One might have a better imaging than the other. I'll give this one to the CRA. I'll give it the soundstage also to the CRA, but it's give and take. It will be also very much dependent on the song that I'm using. Perhaps if the library is going to be a rock library, or predominantly rock library, like HBB's library is, maybe the one that will come out on top might be the Mele. But honestly, the few songs that I listened, I didn't really perceive that to be the case. That's the Mele out of the way. As compared to the T3, let me get this out. So T3 Plus. Definitely you notice straight away that the CRA has got more bass. It's quite obvious. The quality is the same, it's just the quantity that is different. And then they have about the same energy in terms of the highs. Well, at least what I can hear until about 14, 15. So in terms of the highs, it's about the same thing, although graphically, and again accounting for maybe the deficiency in terms of the coupler and so on and so forth, they're about the same thing. Where the T3 is better is in this area here, okay, between the 4 and 8K. It's just more neutral, more tamed, and so not so much with normal listening levels, you won't notice it. Well, I didn't notice it really, but when you crank it up just a little bit more, because it does scale very nicely, the T3, you do see that the presentation of the T3 is nicer. It's smoother. In terms of technicalities, again, we have a very similar situation as to the Mele. It's a give and take. Although this time I would say the T3 comes out slightly on top as compared to the CRA. Going on to the next one, which is the well, actually I don't have the graph here of the HE of the Wizard, but anyway, as for the Wizard, there's more mid bass on the Wizard than on the CRA. Not as much sub bass. The sub bass on the CRA is better. Mids, I would say the Whizzer is slightly better in terms of mids and instruments. It's just got just a more correct tonality. And then highs, it's very equal, not much difference. Technicalities, I would say again that the one that perhaps comes out on top, in my opinion at least, will probably be the CRA. So again, not huge differences. I think the only area where the Whizzer does beat the CRA is in terms of soundstage. So we have the CRA beating, or coming out, it's not beating, coming out more on top in terms of technicalities against the Mele. We have it losing out to the T3. We have it coming out on top in terms of the Whizzer as well. What about the ARIA? Okay, let me just put the graph here of the ARIA. The ARIA is definitely, out of all of them here, in my opinion at least, the one that has, I would say, the more mature tuning. Everything is very nicely matched, very nicely balanced out, and there isn't really anything negative that you can point out. The biggest difference that you will notice is that it doesn't have that extra energy in the bass in terms of quantity, which makes it more correct. It makes it, for me, it's the most correct out of all of them, out of all these IEMs here. There's a perfect transition from sub bass to mid bass, continue on to the mids. The mids are perfect. That dip that you see there, it's not perceived as anything negative. There's no, I've got a resonant peak in my ear of around somewhere around 6.2, 6.3, and the fact that it has that dip there helps out to not make it shouty in any way or be aggressive or harsh. And then it's got that right amount of energy past 10k to just bring that extra detail that's needed. I think the ARIA, against the ARIA, the CRA doesn't beat it in anything but only having more bass quantity over here, that below 100 hertz area. Not quality. The quality is always very much equal. And then finally, our last contender, let's put it that way, is the Yuan, which again has this very smooth presentation with the peak of around, the peak coming up after the in the mids. It's about 3.5k. It then drops off nicely, and that drop there before it picks up again for the resonance at around 8 has its pluses and minuses. It sometimes might render some vocals a little bit thin, but it translates into a nice smoothness and overall very pleasant and easy listening sound. So it's kind of a ZEX Pro. It's very polished, very actually, let me just put in here the graph of the ZEX Pro and take out. If you see the Yuan and the ZEX Pro until about 4K, they're very evenly matched. It's then that area there between 4 and 8 that the ZEX Pro has got that little extra energy, which, like I say, will bring to some vocals, some female vocals, and some instruments, just that little extra zing that is needed. But both are very, very laid back in their presentation. Out of all of these, actually, I would say those two are the most laid back earphones here. What else? What more can I say about the CRA? It's a fantastic little IEM. It really is, and it's a no-brainer for $15. You know what? Go out and buy 2 of them. I've got 3. Just buy 2 of them. Take one, play around with it, mess around with it like I'm doing with one, and I'll be posting some info on that as well soon. and because it really generally is a very, very nice IEM, and a good precursor for things to come from KZ, I hope in the coming year. And you know, the fact that it puts up such a nice fight, let's put it that way, against some of these IEMs, yeah, it's pretty impressive. Oh, sorry, I forgot to finalize with regards to the Yuan Li. The Yuan Li also, in my opinion, comes out on top of the of the um, of the CRA because it is slightly more polished, if that is what you want. It's a more polished presentation, and it really only loses out to the CRA in that area there of 4 to 7, 4 to 8K, where a little extra would have been nice. You know, the highs, although laid back as compared to the CRA, they very nicely matched with the rest of the response of the CRA of the Yuan Li. And so it makes for a very, very nice sounding IEM. It's really a very nice sounding IEM. So if there's two IEMs here which come out as clear upgrades, let's put it that way, it will be the ARIA and the Yuan Li. And then, you know, the Whizzer, the T3 are better in certain aspects. They lose out slightly in others. The Mele is the one that maybe keeps up with the CRA the best in terms of overall bass quantity, but then loses out higher up. And the ZEX Pro is it's nice. It plays well. It's again got a very smooth presentation, but for me personally, I just feel that it loses out to the CRA. Anyway, guys, this has been a very, very long review. I hope you guys will watch it all to the end, because I really tried to put in as much information as possible in a very easy, concise manner. Well, concise is relative speaking, but anyway, in an easy way to understand and bring this interesting comparison, because I really think it was worth it. All right, take care. Thank you. Bye bye.